You can be completely surrounded by people in a crowded room and still feel like there is a vast ocean of distance between you and the world. People are physically around you at every moment, but nothing in the center of your heart feels truly connected to their presence today. You hear their voices and you answer them back as you always do, but something deep inside still feels completely untouched and unknown by them. You stay present on the outside to please the people you love, but emotionally you feel as if you are standing somewhere else entirely. And that specific kind of internal loneliness is incredibly hard to explain because you aren't actually alone in the room with them. Because technically you are not by yourself right now. And that logic makes the internal ache feel even more confusing and deep for you. But inside your own spirit, it still feels profoundly empty, as if there is a hole that no amount of social activity can ever fill. It feels like no one can really reach the part of you that is hurting, even though you are waiting for someone to finally find you in the noise. It feels like no one sees the real heaviness that you are carrying every day, beneath your surface and all of your practiced and perfect smiles. And the more you feel this distance while people are near, the more confusing and heavy your own life becomes as you navigate the day. Because nothing looks obviously wrong to anyone on the outside, and you have every logical reason to be happy and completely at ease. But something still feels painfully far away from you right now, and you cannot seem to find the bridge back home to the room you're in. So you start asking yourself what is fundamentally wrong with your heart, and why the world feels so cold, even when the sun is shining. Why do I still feel so alone when people are standing right here? And why does my spirit refuse to open up to their love anymore? And why does my heart still feel so untouched and cold, even when I am trying my hardest to be present and to finally belong? You still show up to every event and take your seat at the table, making sure that you fulfill every expectation and never miss a moment. You still sit closely with the people in your life as you always have, even though the physical proximity no longer feels like true closeness to your heart. You still have long conversations and share the many stories of your day, but the words feel like they are coming from a script you learned to recite. You still laugh at the right moments and offer a polite and practiced smile, while wondering if anyone can see the quiet sadness resting just behind your eyes. You still do exactly what needs to be done to keep your world moving forward, playing your part so perfectly that no one suspects how heavy you feel. But despite being physically present, something deep within your spirit remains distant, drifting further away from the room with every passing minute of the day. It feels like your body is present in the room, but your heart is somewhere else, lost in a vast and silent landscape that no one else can visit. You deeply want closeness and intimacy with those around you right now. But the path to true connection feels blocked by an invisible and heavy wall. You want connection, but the warmth of others doesn't seem to land in your heart anymore, leaving you feeling cold even when you are standing in the sun. Even when someone offers you genuine kindness or a gentle word of comfort, it still doesn't fully break through the thick layer of isolation around your heart. And that specific kind of disconnect hurts much more than people could ever realize. Because you are grieving a closeness that you can no longer feel. Because this isn't just about being physically alone in a quiet and empty room, but about being emotionally unreachable in a room full of people who love you. This is the painful feeling of being completely emotionally untouched by the world, as if you are a ghost watching the living move through their busy lives. You feel a profound sense of being spiritually tired in a way that sleep cannot fix, as your soul gasps for a single moment of real and honest connection. You are quietly disconnected from the rhythm of the life happening all around you, retreating further into the safety and the silence of your own internal world. You start wondering if something fundamental changed deep inside of you today, and why you no longer feel like you belong in the places you once did. You wonder if you have simply become much harder for other people to reach or understand, as if the language of your heart has become a secret. You begin to fear that you might have forgotten how to feel close to anyone at all, and that the distance you feel in this moment is permanent. You wonder if no one really understands the depth of who you are anymore, and if you are destined to remain a mystery to those you love. And that is the heavy and persistent ache you keep carrying in the total silence, waiting for a bridge to finally appear in the dark. But you are realizing that loneliness is not always about having no one around you. It is about a heart that no longer knows how to invite the world in. Sometimes this deep ache comes from simply not feeling emotionally safe enough to let anyone see the real person living beneath your skin. Sometimes it comes from carrying a heavy internal pain that no one else can see, leaving you to navigate the darkness of your story all on your own. Sometimes it comes from the exhaustion of being strong for too long for everyone else, until you forget how to let anyone be strong for you. Or it comes from hiding too much of your true self for far too long, because you fear that being known would only lead to being rejected. Because real and lasting connection requires a level of honesty that your heart is currently too tired and too guarded to even attempt. And the pain of your past often teaches you to hide your heart away, believing that the silence of isolation is safer than the risk of being seen. You wrap yourself in these invisible layers just to protect your spirit from any more disappointment or any more hurt that the world might bring. You stay guarded because it is the only way you know how to survive, even though the very shield that protects you is now the cage that keeps you alone. You try to stay unreadable to those around you at every moment, ensuring that no one can get close enough to see the cracks in your armor. So even when people come very close to you physically, your heart stays safely tucked away behind the wall you have spent years building. It is not because you do not want to experience love and belonging, but because your heart has forgotten what it feels like to be safe in the light. Because something deep inside no longer knows how to fully trust closeness, and the idea of being truly known feels more like a threat than a gift today. And that is exactly why being surrounded by people can still feel incredibly lonely, as the physical space is filled, but the emotional space remains empty. Because physical presence is not the same thing as true emotional connection, and being seen is not the same thing as being understood. So stop telling yourself that this feeling means you are broken, for your soul is simply trying to find a safe way back home. Stop assuming that this distance means you are unlovable or that you no longer deserve the warmth of a true connection today. Stop thinking it means something is wrong with your soul, because the heart has its own reasons that the mind cannot yet see. Sometimes it just means that your heart is incredibly tired from carrying the heavy weight of expectations that you were never meant to hold. Sometimes it means your trust has been worn down by the world, and you are simply waiting for the environment to feel safe again. Sometimes it means your pain has been hidden away too long, and the loneliness is finally calling for you to bring it into the light. And you are realizing that hidden pain always creates distance, acting as a buffer between who you are and the world around you. This distance is not because you truly want it to be there, but because your spirit is prioritizing its own internal survival right now. But the distance remains because your heart has learned to protect itself from any more disappointment or any more hurt that the world brings. So you are beginning to understand that this is not just a people problem, but a deeper internal dynamic that is ready to be explored. It is also a healing problem that requires patience and grace as you slowly learn how to dismantle the walls you built to stay safe. It is a trust problem that cannot be fixed by forced interaction, but by the slow and steady evidence of genuine emotional safety. It is a tenderness problem where your heart has become slightly numb, and it is finally asking for the permission to feel something real. It is a safety problem where your spirit is constantly scanning the room, looking for a place where it can finally exhale and let its guard down. Your soul is not asking for more noise or more busy conversations. It is asking for a moment of true and quiet understanding in the light. It is asking for a real and honest connection that reaches beyond the surface and allows you to be seen in all of your beautiful truth. It is asking for real honesty from yourself and from others, creating a foundation where the truth can finally be spoken and received. It is asking for the healing touch of real gentleness, to mend the places where your heart has become hard and guarded over the years. It is asking for a real and steady presence to sit with you in the quiet, without the need for performance or the pressure to be okay. And that deep and honest recognition is where the shift truly begins, as the light of understanding starts to open up a wider and calmer space. So let go of the heavy shame of feeling lonely, because needing other people is the most natural part of being human. Let go of judging yourself for being distant or quiet, and realize that your withdrawal was simply a way to stay safe. Let go of the burden of pretending it does not matter, because the distance you feel in your heart is a real part of your story. Because your internal world truly does matter to the light, and you deserve to be known in the places that feel the most hollow. Your profound need for real connection is not a weakness. It is the beautiful cry of a soul that was designed for love. Your ache for closeness is not a failure of character, but proof that you were made for something much deeper than this silence. Your spiritual tiredness is not something you have to hide anymore, for the light is finally ready to meet you exactly where you are. It is something sacred that you can finally bring into the light, allowing the warmth to dissolve the coldness of your isolation. And maybe your healing starts with absolute internal honesty, as you find the courage to speak the words you have kept silence. It starts by admitting that you feel completely unseen, even when you are standing in the middle of a very crowded room. It starts by admitting that you feel so very far away, despite the physical proximity of everyone who is around you right now. Admitting that even when people are near, your heart still feels alone is the first step toward building a bridge back to life. Because true healing does not begin with pretending to be fine. It begins when you stop performing and start being real with yourself. It begins with the quiet power of the simple truth, creating a safe white space for your spirit to finally rest and recover. It begins with a gentle truth that offers you absolute grace and washes away the need to maintain your heavy protective armor. It begins with a safe truth that holds you with kindness and reminds you that your heart is worthy of being protected and loved. It begins with an honest truth that requires no more masks, allowing your true self to emerge into the soft and radiant light of day. And when you finally stop hiding the loneliness from your own heart, you strip the shadows of their power to keep you trapped alone. You feel the heavy pressure finally leaving your chest area, as the weight loses its ability to dictate who you are meant to be. The emotional wall you built begins to soften and dissolve, opening up new paths for connection that you once thought were closed. The internal pressure begins to loosen its grip on your spirit, giving you the freedom to move through the world without constriction. The silence of the room becomes less heavy and cold today, as a new and radiant warmth starts to fill all of the empty spaces within. Your soul begins to breathe again with absolute ease, finding its natural and healthy rhythm in the quiet peace of this moment. You feel the warmth entering slowly into the hidden corners, bringing life back to the places that have been numb for so very long. You are no longer hidden inside the ache of your past, but you are standing at the threshold of a beautiful and lasting restoration. And when you finally stop hiding that secret internal ache, something beautiful and subtle starts to change deep inside your spirit. This restoration does not happen with a sudden rush of feeling, and it certainly does not happen instantly for most people today. But it happens very quietly in the still moments of your day, as your spirit begins to trust the light of belonging once again. You begin to notice what your heart has actually been needing for years, and you finally give yourself the permission to listen. You find yourself being drawn towards safe and steady people who can hold space for your story without needing to fix you. You find yourself seeking out slower and much gentler moments, where the world is not demanding another performance from your heart. You start practicing a real and honest level of self-honesty that allows the light of truth to finally reach your tired center. You begin to carry more softness in your words and your posture, as the hard edges of your survival armor start to melt away. There is much less performance in how you carry yourself today, because you no longer feel like you have a mask to maintain. There is much less pretending that you are perfectly okay today. And that simple honesty brings a profound sense of relief. You find yourself wearing much less emotional armor in your daily life, as your heart realizes that it is finally safe to be seen. You begin to open a little more toward the world around you and toward the possibilities of belonging that you once feared. You find the courage to speak a little more of your honest truth and to share the hidden parts of yourself with those you love. You find the internal energy to stay present in the room a little longer instead of retreating into the safety of your own mind. You make a choice to stop disappearing inside yourself today and to stand fully in the radiant light of your own existence. You begin to feel that real connection is still very much possible, even after everything you have been through in the silence. This is not a perfect or a flawless connection with others, but it is real, and it is more than enough for your heart today. It may not be an instant or a total sense of closeness, but it is a bridge being built one honest moment at a time. But it is a real connection that touches the very center of you and reminds you that you are not forgotten or truly alone. It is an honest connection that requires no effort or performance, just the simple and quiet presence of being real together. It is a gentle connection that offers you tenderness and grace, allowing your soul to rest in the warmth of being understood. And that small spark of belonging changes the atmosphere inside you, shifting the climate of your heart from winter to spring. The room of your spirit starts to feel much less hollow and empty as the light of connection begins to fill every hidden corner. The quiet moments in your life feel much less cold and threatening because you know that you are finally returning to the light. Your heart is finally coming back toward life and toward love, leaving the shadows of your isolation far behind you for good. Now the whole world feels completely different to you because you are finally walking in a space of deep and quiet acceptance. It is not because you are never lonely anymore, but because the feeling no longer causes your heart to panic in the dark. It is because the loneliness is no longer swallowing the whole room, allowing you to find your footing and breathe in the middle of it. You finally understand the message of your heart much better now, and that deep clarity has given you back your internal power today. You finally stop fearing the return of the old feelings so much, choosing instead to stand your ground with a quiet and steady spirit. You stop letting the silence define your internal worth, realizing that you are worthy of love even when connection feels far away. You stop assuming that the distance means you are forgotten, and you begin to trust that the light is still present beside you. Because now you truly know what this heavy feeling really is, and that simple realization has set you free from the prison of shame. It is just a tired heart asking for a safe emotional connection and for the permission to be real without any fear of rejection today. It is a guarded soul slowly learning how to soften its edges and how to allow the warmth of the world to touch it once again. It is a hidden ache that is finally asking to be seen in the light, so that it can be healed by the touch of absolute and total grace. And when you finally understand that your needs are not failures, a real and lasting peace begins to grow in the silence of your room. Peace begins to grow from the very center of your being, and it starts to fill every empty space that isolation left behind. It is not a loud or a dramatic kind of peace today, but a quiet and steady assurance that your heart is perfectly safe. It is not a dramatic event, but a stable environment of rest, where you can finally exist without the pressure to perform belonging. But it is a steady and sure peace that will not flicker, for its foundation is built on the truth of who you actually are. You feel grounded and secure in the middle of the world today, knowing that your internal worth is no longer up for debate. You feel a gentle reassurance in every corner of your life, reminding you that the distance you once felt was never permanent. This kind of peace reminds you that distance is not the end, but only a season in your story that is finally coming to its close. And it reminds you that true connection can and will return, as you finally walk into the absolute freedom of being known. If you feel completely alone even when people are standing right beside you, please know that this feeling does not mean you have failed at life. Feeling this specific kind of internal distance does not mean that you are strange or that you are fundamentally different from everyone else in the room. It does not mean that your spirit is too far gone to ever find its way back, or that the silence you carry is going to last forever. It most certainly does not mean that you are broken or impossible to love, for your worth is not measured by how close you feel to others. It may simply mean that your heart is tired and is still learning how to feel safe, and that you are deserving of the time it takes to heal. Because you must remember that tired hearts require an immense amount of gentleness to melt away the frost of isolation that has built up over time. Guarded hearts always need a great deal of patience to finally soften their edges. So do not rush the sacred process of your own internal restoration today. Lonely hearts eventually need the simple gifts of truth, grace, and real presence to remind them that they are never truly walking this road alone. And requiring those things from the world is not too much for a human soul to need, for we were all designed for the beauty of connection and love. That is exactly what the journey of healing was created for you to experience today, as you walk out of the shadows and back into the light.